Welcome to Coffee Break with Rachel Vigil, presented by Superbook Sports. Taking a daily look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel Vigil.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. I know lots of people in the Mile High City aren't thrilled with the result last night, but I'm telling everybody, do not panic just yet. We got DMAC Jake Shapiro going to join us here in a little bit. DMAC, how are you this morning?
I'm doing good, Rachel. How are you?
I'm good. I was really bummed last night, but I woke up. I actually turned on ESPN, and they were talking highly about the Nuggets, despite them losing last night. So
yeah, I rewatched the game this morning, and all is not lost. All is not lost.
Don't panic yet, everyone.
But here's what the problem was. The big problem. They started the first, third, and fourth poorly. And you just can't do that. I mean, Miami's a legit team, obviously. They're going to go on runs. They're going to do good things. There was a lot of good that the Nuggets did. Yep. But the one guy, when I rewatched things, who really had the most mystifying game of anybody was KCP. And he fouled two shooters, taking threes. You just can't do that. He was, he had a very, very weird up and down game. Bruce Brown made some kind of unusual mistakes. It was kind of weird. And I'm telling you, rewatching the game when they were up 15, I mean, it really just felt like they were, going to really roll. But they had hit a series of three-pointers, including Jeff Green and Bruce Brown. And, that's what we expect out of the Nuggets, getting contributions from guys like that. It is curious, Rachel. There's 3 times that Jokic has gone for over 40 points in the playoffs, and they've lost all 3 times. And he had a playoff low 4 assists last night. And even though Eric Spoelstra, skewered oh my gosh, I'm forgetting her name. ESPN correspondent reporter.
Lisa Silvers?
No. Oh gosh, I'm forgetting her name. But because she suggested that.
I know what you're talking about.
That they were just letting Jokic have those points on purpose.
Yeah, Shelburne.
Shelburne.
Yeah, I think that's how you.
Ramona Shelburne, right?
Yes.
Anyways, I didn't think it was a bad question. I thought it was actually a pretty good question. And Spoelstra is like, dost protest too loudly. I think what they did, Rachel, and I think it's the best way to play Denver. You just don't always double Jokic. You got to play him one-on-one. And if he goes for 40, he goes for 40. But the truth is, when you do that, you keep the rhythm out of the other players' hands. It's kind of like what the Nuggets did to Jimmy Butler with Bam Adebayo. They more or less said, okay, it's not like we're letting him score, but we're okay if he's the one taking the shots. And basically yesterday, the Heat were okay with Jokic taking the shots.
Yeah, clearly it worked out. Okay, I see this comment from Kyle, and it says, I am very worried. So, Kyle, I need you to explain in the comments why you are so worried, and we're going to respond back to it. But you mentioned Jokic because Jokic and Murray essentially have to – it's like Jimmy Butler has to have a big game for the Heat, and really he hasn't done much. So the fact that they were able to walk away with a win. But Jokic and Jamal need to have big wins, essentially, for the Nuggets to be able to win a title. I think we can both agree on that, correct?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, I'm with you.
So I clicked the wrong thing. Anyways, we'll look here as I will bring in Jake Shapiro right here. But the minutes of Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray are 41 and 38. Now, I bring this up because Jokic didn't. Good morning, Jake. How are you?
Hi, guys.
Jokic didn't start the fourth, correct? He didn't come in until what time?
Like 10:38.
Yeah, he was only out like a minute and a half.
Should Malone have played Jokic for the entire fourth quarter? because essentially Big Honey, he's your guy. He was the hottest guy out on the court last night for the Nuggets, and they're getting extra rest because essentially the TV commercials are longer. Should you have just trusted? Oh, there goes DMAC. Should you have just trusted Big Honey to be able to go out there and play longer minutes?
Well, I turned to DMAC right before that decision occurred. And we both looked at each other and said, you got to sit Jokic to start the fourth because how much he exerted himself in the third. I think he scored 18 of Denver's 26 points in the third quarter. It was all Jokic. So someone would say, oh, well, you need Jokic to stay in there to buoy them. Jokic would have had nothing left for the end of the game had he started there. It can't just be all Jokic. Jamal Murray needed to be better last night. If Jamal Murray has the Murray quarter in the fourth quarter, the Nuggets win the game. He almost did. So, I'm fine with Jokic of not starting. I'm actually fine with them not calling a timeout on the last play too. I'm not necessarily upset with Malone at any singular coaching decision. I just thought the Nuggets were a little underprepared last night, and I'm not sure if that's a coaching thing or it's these guys weren't focused and didn't have enough effort. And yes, effort does go into reading the scouting report, understanding it, and executing it.
You know, I'm not sure about the whole effort thing. Going back and watching the game, I'm not sure about that. I think it was more like Malone talked about discipline. I'm tending to go sort of down that way. JJ Redick did a good job talking about how to switch off a screen. And that led to 2 big baskets in a row by the Heat. We got KCP fouling guys who are taking 3-pointers that allowed, 6 free throws. I don't know if it's effort, really, seriously. I think it might be a little bit more discipline and just being smarter, frankly. And then perhaps raising the intensity of things. But I don't know if they weren't trying, although certainly Michael Malone said they weren't trying. There's no doubt about that. I just think it was more you just kind of got caught, not playing super disciplined basketball. I do find it fascinating that Bruce Brown, after the game, said that they've been off, Jake, and you were there. They were off for the past couple of days. That caught me by surprise. I do know this is crazy, guys. The Nuggets have only played 2 NBA games in the past 13 days. So I do wonder if, seriously, they're just a little still kind of rusty. And I do think they might have been spelling themselves a little bit. I mean, it's pretty impossible. If you turn on any media whatsoever, any media that you have any interest in, if you're a sports fan or a basketball fan, which of course they all are, it's pretty impossible not to hear how great you are.
Sure. And I think sometimes we can hear too much noise, despite all of them being like, oh, we've been off of social media, even from the Heat locker room. I feel like we've heard. You still hear. We know Michael Malone hears all the talk that happens, even though he'll never admit it. If you hear how good you are, you can sometimes just be like, all right, we don't have to take our foot off the gas. We got the talent already, Jake.
In talking to some people last night, little birdies and all the people we like to know and talk to, there did seem to be a theory that the Nuggets may have regretted the last few days and how they prepared for game 2 and how they approached it, which completely goes in line with Jeff Green. It's the finals, man. And Bruce Brown being very disappointed in the way his team prepared, as well as Nikola Jokic being a little bit down. Aaron Gordon did not talk last night to the media. He was pretty devastated when I saw him in terms of his reaction to things. I was in and out of the Heat, Nuggets locker room, Heat press conference, Nuggets press conference, and then I talked to people after the game. And I think that, Bruce said it, and it's really weird to say. Bruce said, I think this is the wake-up call the Nuggets needed. Mm-hmm. And I don't necessarily disagree with him, but what would have happened if that Jamal shot goes down and they win overtime? Is it not a wake-up call? Do they not need the wake-up call? Because they were one play away from winning that game, and there were several plays. Like, let's be clear. The Heat were gifted 3 points on an out of bounds play because Jimmy Butler steps out of bounds. The next pass is a 3-point shot by John Gobble, who's an official from Miami who went to high school with Udonis Haslem, and he also missed the goaltending call as well. So, like, there's 3 plays in the game right there that I say could have changed it. There's another one or 2, and DMAC referenced them. KCP had the 2 stupidest fouls I've seen him make in a Denver Nuggets uniform last night. So what happens if any number of those 7 plays goes the Nuggets' way? Did they not need the wake-up call? Like, I'm not entirely sure what's wrong here. So when we talk about, like, adjustments needed for game 2, I think they can do the same thing. They just need to be more focused.
Yeah, that's why I rewatching the game, I don't know if it's effort. I mean, you know, of course, Michael Malone said that, but I don't know, man. I don't think that's what it was. That being said, the out-of-bounds play, okay, fine, bad call. And so was the missed goaltending. However, on the goaltending play, the Heat went down, they missed a bucket, and the Nuggets came back and scored an easy layup. So that it's not like that was unbelievably game-changing. You know, it didn't put the Nuggets down more. It just sort of stalled everything in life for a minute. Listen, I got to give the Heat some credit too. Duncan Robinson had done nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing. And he scored 10 points and he's mean mugging out there. And you know what? That's what we're used to the Nuggets doing, isn't it? We're used to somebody who hasn't really done anything. And we kind of did get that, didn't we, out of Christian Braun last night? So they had Duncan Robinson. We had Christian Braun. I mean, I'd say that's about equal, frankly. You know, it just happened. It's more glaring because it happened for the Heat in the fourth quarter. But guys, the Nuggets were up by 8 points, you know, going into the fourth quarter. They were up 21 points going into the fourth quarter in game 1. I mean, I get it. Their fourth quarter sucked. They gave up 36 points. You can't do that. But you got to give the Heat a little credit too. And as hot as Max Strus started, he didn't do anything after the first quarter.
Let me, Rich, real quick, just a stat to back D-Mac's point.
Yeah.
I said this going into the series. The only team that was better in the crunch time in the regular season and the postseason this year than the Denver Nuggets was the Miami Heat. This is not an aberration for the Miami Heat to be good in the fourth quarter.
It's kind of fascinating because it seems like both of these teams really have made it this far because they've stuck to their identity. Seems like they haven't changed anything. The Heat haven't changed anything. They've stuck to their identity and found ways to win. Same for the Nuggets, despite them losing last night. They've stuck to their identity. And when you think about that, that's pretty crazy. I feel like we hear all the time about, oh, these adjustments. Both of these teams really have. What did Jimmy Butler say? Jake, I know you were in the press conference last night. He's got a big quote going around right now.
Well, the one that caught me was our shots went down and theirs didn't. I'm not sure which one you're referencing, but he kind of blew off everything and wrote it down under that. I will brush back on you a little bit. They made a significant change to their starting lineup last night, and it was to go back to what they had done before. Erik Spoelstra, you want to talk about Michael Malone and being stubborn. Erik Spoelstra, first comment in the press conference, I made a mistake in starting Caleb Martin game 1. Shouldn't have done that, is what he said. I love Caleb. He's a great player. Should be coming off our bench. We need the size of Kevin and his veteran experience, and Kyle Lowry playing a bigger part of the rotation. Those guys are huge. That was number 1 adjustment. Number 2 is they played Jamal Murray differently last night. They were more aggressive. They got up into his grill. And the real reason the Nuggets didn't score 120 points, the magic number, at home, isn't because their offense was bad. Their offense was actually pretty good last night. With Jokic on the floor, it was slightly less good than it normally is. But the reality is they took possessions out of that game. The Nuggets only had 85 possessions in that game. So when you have a huge talent gap between the Heat and the Nuggets, the fewer the possessions, the less that talent gap can play out. So the Heat played the game slightly differently, but you're right in saying their principles stayed the same. They just made some around the fringes adjustments.
Here's the truth on this. So I like the 120. They score 120. They win relatively easily, okay? Michael Porter Jr. was 1 of 6 from 3. He needs 2 more 3-pointers. Well, there's 6 points. You need 1 more 3-pointer probably from, well, anybody else. Probably KCP. Jamal was 3 of 8, so I'm not going to ask too much of him. But you only need one more. That's 9. And then, I mean, just give me another bucket from
the two Aaron Gordon free throws,
maybe, or somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really that crazy to see how you could have got to 120.
Real quick, we want to go back to AG not talking to the media because he didn't feel well, which I think we can all probably agree. I don't know. It feels like a little bit of a BS load to me. That's just my personal opinion. We destroyed Devin Booker for not talking to the media after being eliminated from the playoffs. They lost one game in the NBA Finals. I feel like Aaron Gordon, you got to step up to the plate. But I'm sorry if you didn't feel good. You have to go and talk to the team because now you're showing all the emotion that got brought into the game. And Jokic, he never gets too high and he never gets too low. But if you're going to have emotions completely ride you through this, when things don't go well, this train can go off the tracks really fast.
Well, I wasn't in the locker room. Jake was. So they brought Jamal Murray, Jeff Green, and Jokic. They were supposed to bring AG. Mm-hmm. He was supposed to come to the podium. So maybe – so you don't really think he's sick, Rachel? You actually think there's something else going on? I tend to think that he's just really not feeling that good.
No, I do not. Mostly because I heard some whispering from other birdies that he's just left the building.
Jake?
I don't know, but on Rachel's point with Devin Booker lost a closeout game at home for the second year in a row where he didn't show up, didn't talk to the media, and then doesn't do media the following day. I think that's a huge step in a leap from what Aaron Gordon did. I mean, we're probably going to hear from Aaron Gordon at practice tomorrow. So whatever, if he's truly sick, and I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because Aaron's been great to us all year. Great. Agreed. And he's talked with everyone at every single request. If Aaron is feeling sick and he doesn't want to give almost every request. There was one. Yeah. But, if he's feeling sick and he doesn't want to get his teammates sick, he doesn't want to be around his teammates or whatever. The reality of the situation is, again, it's not Aaron Gordon being too emotional. I do think there was a little bit of an effort problem. I don't think it was as high. Like Malone starting his press conference with, what do you think the problem is? Let's talk about effort. Okay, now that we're talking about effort, it's like no one is bringing up effort, Mike. You brought it up. So I do think there was a little bit of an effort thing. But in reality, it's just the Nuggets can't let the Heat have that many open three-pointers. They've done an incredible job defending them at the rim and preventing them from getting downhill and getting to the free throw line a lot. They got to the free throw line a lot more in game 2 than game 1. But you have a team that has led the NBA in three-point shooting percentage in the playoffs, and they had so many open three-pointers in game 1, so many open three-pointers in game 2. And I will remind you, the three-point shooting, wide open three-point shooters, the NBA average is 39% hit rate. That was way above that for Miami last night. Their shot quality says they should not have scored that many points. So if you play this series out, you play this game out again a couple times, the Nuggets are going to win that game a majority of the time. So after that game, I wake up this morning and I'm thinking about it. I'm more confident now that the Nuggets are going to win this series, probably in 5, than I was going into that game. I thought the Heat would have something bigger up their sleeves. They didn't. And, maybe the Heat shoot 50% from 3 again in game 4 or game 3 or whatever. And maybe this goes 6 or 7. But I have no doubts that the Nuggets are going to win this series. And it's very scary to say that against the Miami Heat voodoo magic vampire unkillable thing they've got going on, because they are very scary. They scored 17 points in the fourth quarter before the Nuggets hit a field goal. Like that's scary, man.
Here's what's really interesting about the Heat compared to the other teams that the Nuggets have played. They, like the Nuggets, win in a variety of ways. You can't just say, hey, stop this and stop that, and then just this, that, the other thing. It was pretty simple to look at the Timberwolves, Lakers, and Suns, especially the Suns. The Suns were the easiest one to sort of diagnose. But the Suns have just unbelievable players with Durant and Booker. This Heat team, they're interesting. I mean, Spoelstra went 5 deep off the bench last night, okay? And I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but in the NBA playoffs, it's a lot. I mean, the Nuggets haven't gone more than 3 deep and sometimes just 2 deep in the entire playoffs. They changed their starting lineup in the middle of the NBA playoffs. The Nuggets would never, ever, ever do that. So you have a very versatile team with the Heat. But you also have, they've got to be, they did what they needed to do. They almost shot 50% from 3. Guys, you shoot 50% from 3. They were 48.6. That is outstanding. You are going to keep yourself, if not win, a lot of games shooting 17 of 35. The Nuggets shot 39.3. That's probably like 2 threes off. They instead of 11 of 28, they're probably more like 13 of 28 in general. Well, that's 6 points to Jake's point. That's 6 points right there. If they just do what they normally do against a team that was pretty extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
You get that 6 points, you win. And you know what that 6 points is, guys? It's pretty simple. It's 2 Michael Porter Jr. threes. I mean, it really is. It's that simple.
And on top of that, if Miami's missing more 3-point shots, those are more rebounds, which leads to Nikola Jokic pushing the pace, which gets you into your offense quicker, which leads to better possessions. Like, it's pretty, like, I say this all the time. This game is so simple, man. Like, it's really simple. And the Nuggets lost because the Heat hit more shots. Plain and simple. And a couple calls went against the Nuggets' way. If things spiral, like, the adjustment of the Heat missing 2 more 3-pointers, let alone the score, it lets the Nuggets push the ball 2 more times, which leads to better shots on their end. It's that simple.
You would hope in a year where the Nuggets learn their lesson and still win and always seem to bounce back when ripped by Malone. Now that they lost, you would hope they have the heart, courage, and determination that this is a wake-up call that will serve its purpose even though they lost. It is a character test. Most of the time when Malone's ripping his team and they still win, which is wild that you would play like crap, at certain points and still win games. Well, now it's stung in a unbelievably critical time. So here we go. I think game 3 will determine the entire series one way or the other. Jake, I think you're right. I think if the Nuggets win game 3, they win the next 2 relatively easily. And if they lose game 3, I'm not saying it's over, but if they lose game 3, we may be talking about a 7-game series.
JJ Redick, we've mentioned MPJ a few times now. JJ Redick said this morning, the lack of effort was directed at MPJ this morning. Your thoughts, Jake Shapiro?
100%. And I listened to JJ Redick's postgame last night as well. And it's funny because MPJ was actually on JJ Redick's podcast a week ago. And I talked to MPJ about that appearance. I said, it's a nice show. They had a great conversation. They did.
Did you say it just like that?
I was like, hey, I didn't say it as that.
No, it was more like Rachel. It was more like this. Nice show.
Yeah, I liked you on JJ Redick, Mike.
You were really,
like,
really good.
Thanks, Jake. That's how it was. Yeah, that's exactly how it was. No, and 100%. It was, I said to DMAC at one point in the game, I'm like, Michael Porter Jr. needs to get pulled from this game. He's been absolutely atrocious. And down the stretch, he was. It was Bruce Brown in there. MPJ came back on when KCP fouled out. But MPJ was the worst Nugget by far last night. Like, Jeff Green outplayed MPJ. And then some. Jeff Green might have been actually the 3rd best player on the team last night. So yeah, MPJ needs to play a lot better. And it's funny because he had such a good game 1 and he didn't shoot well. He had such a bad game 2 and didn't shoot well. So maybe this is a rust thing, as DMAC has pointed out. I actually thought the Nuggets played a little bit better in game 2 than they did in game 1, just in totality of that game. But there were just spurts where they looked atrocious and they looked like they forgot how to be a basketball team. So maybe it is. They just need to play some more basketball because, I got news for you. That was the Nuggets' first loss in 28 days, and it was their first loss at home since March. Like, they haven't been in this situation in a long time.
Since March?
They hadn't lost at home since March.
Wow. Who did they lose to?
New Orleans without Nikola.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Holy smokes. Okay, well, I'm curious from your perspective, DMAC on MPJ.
Not good. In clearly in Malone's doghouse after the game. But KCP had bad moments as well. As good as the Crayola Box crew was in the first half, they kind of withered away a little bit. And Christian Braun, I thought Christian Braun overall played great. But, he had his rookie moments in the second half and fourth quarter. And it's just like, those sort of things. Bruce Brown had 3 turnovers, which, is unusual for Bruce Brown. But Michael Porter Jr.'s got to play better. And one of the things Michael Porter Jr. has been able to do, if he's not feeling it from 3, he takes the ball to the hoop. Well, he wasn't even doing that. And I think his body language is kind of poor. And, I think it is a tough spot for Michael Porter Jr. because he knows he's not going to touch the ball in a close game with 3 minutes to go. He's just not. Jamal's going to, I think, hog it a little bit. And listen, it's hard for me to be critical of Jamal because he's made so many incredible late quarter shots. Mm-hmm. But sometimes, even Michael Jordan passed the ball occasionally, like to Steve Kerr, and that Jeff Paxson, got passes from Michael Jordan late in big games. And if you go back and watch that final play, guys, Jamal could have taken it down, dished to KCP, and hit Michael Porter Jr., who was wide open for a corner 3. But go back and watch it. Michael Porter Jr. stands there in the corner with his arms down at his side. He may as well have taken a seat and gone to the Lexus Club. He knew he wasn't getting the ball. And it was an okay look that Jamal got. We've certainly seen him hit harder shots, and he did hit 3-pointers in that fourth quarter. But, that was like right there, man. Like, that's the moment right there, Jamal. That's the moment right there. They're going to be up on you. You can swing the ball really quick. You can get a screen set, and Michael Porter Jr. is going to be open all the time. And I don't think these guys are kind of stuck. As creative as they are on so many things, at the end of games, they just do the same thing. They spread out, and Jamal just, he's up a shot. And when you go back and watch that possession, the ball actually got knocked loose a little bit. So it's not like they could even get into a good flow. The one thing that was kind of open, if you go back and watch it, was Michael Porter Jr. in the corner. And if you're not going to get him the ball in that situation, or he's not a real option, guys, why is he even in the game? Why is he even in the game? You may as well put in, Zeke Naji to rebound. If it's going to be like that, if it's just Jamal hucking up a shot and never going to pass it. But Jamal's great. So I don't want to be too critical of Jamal because he's played so well. But go back and watch it for yourself. I think it's pretty obvious to see.
We talk all the time about how the Nuggets are so good because they pass the ball so much. But when you point something like that out, are we giving them a little bit too much credit, or should the superstar just always take the last shot? I think of the Warriors game, this is kind of a bad example because Jordan Poole missed the final shot, but it wasn't Steph taking the final shot. It wasn't Clay. It was Jordan Poole that they gave to take the final shot, Jake.
Yeah, Monte Morris hit a buzzer beater against the Warriors last year for the Nuggets, and that's Jokic ball, though. Like, Jokic is the guy that's going to facilitate. Whereas when Jamal's in there and Jamal's healthy, he was obviously taking that shot in Portland this year. He's obviously taking the shot at the end of quarters, and you live and die with it. It's just kind of the way the Nuggets are built right now. And I don't disagree that an MPJ 3 is a higher percentage shot than any shot Jamal Murray is taking from 3, just generally speaking, let alone one off the bounce versus one on the catch and shoot, because you just cannot block MPJ's 3, even on a bad night. But it doesn't also tell you the point that the Nuggets had also just scored on 5 straight possessions with Jamal being the head of the snake going into that shot. So I could see his confidence. And Nikola Jokic, his style as a leader, as Draymond Green pointed out, is to let Jamal take that shot and Jamal to be that guy. So I think for the Nuggets to win a championship the way they are and the way their mental is Jamal just has to be the guy that takes those shots, unless something drastically changes where Jamal's not wanting to take those shots anymore. We've been dealing with Jamal wanting to take these shots since Will Barton was on the team in 2017. These guys were fighting for shots at the end of quarters for years and years. And Will was taking them away from Jamal. And it was this very frustrating thing. That's just kind of the way basketball is, where these end of game plays, there are very few surprises. I'm not necessarily a big fan of it. But again, I'm going to go back to why I didn't like the timeout, why I liked that they didn't call a timeout. If I was Michael Malone, I may have called a timeout when the ball got loose and Jamal fell backwards. Mm-hmm. Initially, I'm totally in agreement, no timeout, because 2 times in that game alone, the Nuggets had plays after timeouts that resulted in turnovers. Twice in that game alone. Eric Spoelstra is also known as the best ATO coach in the NBA, after timeout play coach in the NBA. To not let them get prepared and not give them the chance to potentially foul to put the Nuggets at the line for 2 instead of 3, I thought was the correct move from Michael Malone. But there needs to be a little bit more creativity, whether it's getting Porter involved in the action with Jokic and Murray instead of just Murray basically dribbling around and dancing. And yeah, it was a decent enough look where I said Jamal can hit that shot, but you want a shot at that point where it's like Jamal should hit that shot.
On your point of we all 3 of us shook our head when you start, the 2 of us besides point, shook our head when you said, when Jamal fell back, we would have called timeout. And it's so easy to say that now, like the next morning, but during that, like, there's just no way you can absolutely just be like,
I instantly went like this. As soon as it happened, I said timeout in my head.
Oh, that's so hard because there was like 2.7 seconds left or 3.4.
I would have called a timeout from the jump. They had 2 to spare, and I understand. And listen, I definitely respect Michael Malone, and I know he knows what you knew too, Jake, and he said that afterwards. I get it. I do get it. But in that particular circumstance, just let the guys take a breath. Let everybody just take a breath. And if the Heat come out and defend great, you don't get a shot, well, all right. I mean, so be it. But you had plenty of time to come up with something. And when the ball got bounced away a little bit, I think he still had like 9 seconds. I mean, you really seriously had time to come up with something and give it your best shot. Well, just giving everybody a little pause. Now, I'll go back to a football reference. Gary Kubiak called a timeout so DeMarcus Ware could get back on the field before a 2-point conversion. There was no reason for him to call the timeout. It probably would have helped the Patriots in the AFC Championship game more than the Broncos. But it was just a moment of like, I want my best players just to take a breath so we can all be together to figure out how we're going to do this. I think Spoelstra made a gargantuan coaching mistake in game 1. He admitted it. And I think Malone made a mistake in this particular circumstance. I do. I understand his reasonings behind it. And okay, fine. He can say it was a coin flip, but George Karl disagreed with it. And I did too.
George Karl doesn't know a time. He can't call a timeout when guys can't get the ball in bounds. Get George Karl out of here. George Karl can't coach. He can't. All his players know it. Every single one of his players. Like, I'm done with George Karl and this Twitter tirade of being like the kingmaker of Nuggets Twitter all of a sudden. Like, since when did George Karl become the decider of what is and what isn't in Nuggets history? It's embarrassing. Like, he would get outcoached in circles by Malone. I'm done with Karl.
Wow. Okay. Well, I respect George Karl. So
I don't.
I guess we disagree on that one.
Oh my gosh, Jake!
I like Michael Malone
fired you up, my friend.
It's not to me one thing or another. I think it's an interesting, debatable point, and it's not like the game. I mean, ultimately, that's the way the game ended. Hey, listen, this feels a lot to me like the game in Phoenix where the Suns played unbelievable and they won by 5. Like they played like their absolute positive best and they barely beat the Nuggets. Okay, it just sucks that it happened at home. And we know what the advantage is when you go up 2-0. That being said, look what the Nuggets have done on the road. Look what they did in game 6. Look what they did to the Lakers down 15 in game 4 and came back and won. It's not an unusual place for them to go. And sometimes when you go home, there's more pressure because, okay, now your fans are into it. But I'm totally giving all my respect to the Heat, okay? They're a good, scrappy will team. And they can come up with a variety of ways. They can. Like, you can't just sit here and say, okay, Butler's got to do this, and Adebayo's got to do that, and then this, that, the other thing. Not really. No. I mean, they can come at you in a lot of different ways. But if you can just – all the Nuggets have to do is be the Nuggets. That's all. We heard that phrase, Nuggets basketball, Nuggets basketball, Nuggets basketball, because everybody seemed shocked to find out there was such a thing called Nuggets basketball. All you have to do is play Nuggets basketball, and you're going to be okay. The question is your resilience. And I know you say that you heard little birdies about AG, and maybe he was upset. Okay, I mean, I hope that's the case because I'd rather him just be a little bit emotional and upset than actually sick. So I hope that is the case. I hope he was just a little emotional. And I love AG. I think he's a great dude. So, I don't have any problems with him not really talking to the media. That seems a little different than his personality. That's why I tend to actually lean into that. Maybe he really is sick, but if you're hearing differently, then, okay.
So interesting what you hear behind the scenes always. No one said, though, it was going to be an easy road to win a championship. That's for sure. So everybody don't hit the panic button yet. Just believe. But Malone is getting a ton of criticism, so much criticism this morning. And my question to both of you is, who is to blame? Is it Malone and the coaching staff because the players weren't prepared? Or is it the players, the men in that locker room who didn't seem prepared? Or I know they care, but it seems like maybe they just didn't care. I feel you guys know what I'm trying to say. They care. I know they care so much, but maybe they just overlooked this team or overlooked game 2 because they were at home and because they are the Nuggets and they're playing Nuggets basketball. Who's to blame?
They were up by 6. They were up by 6 at halftime after being down 11. Okay, they blew a 15-point lead, but they were still up by 6. They won the third quarter despite playing poorly at the beginning of the third quarter. They won it by 2 points and were up by 8. They fell asleep to start the fourth quarter. And the shots they missed, guys, these are shots they make all the time. Like the 3 shots they missed when Duncan Robinson was having the, first 3 minutes of his life. So who do you put that on? I don't know. We saw the audio in game of Michael Malone screaming at him to wake up and whatever. So it's like, I'm pretty sure they heard him. I'm pretty sure they understood, what was going on. And it was the Crayola box crew to start the fourth quarter, not Jokic. So I don't know, guys. I don't know what to say here. I think the Nuggets barely lost, and I thought they showed a little chutzpah because they were down by 12 points with less than 4 minutes to go. And they like Jake pointed out, scored on 5 straight possessions, and the Heat got a little cool at the very end of the game. Jimmy Butler hit a big basket, but really, he also missed a big shot that was contested by Jokic that would have sealed the game. And Rachel, we're standing together at the end of the game, and I'm like, they can't miss. I started saying that to you with about 2.5 minutes to go. Well, they didn't miss. They can't miss. They can't miss. It was bucket, until Jamal, missed a shot that he hits a lot of times. I'd say Jamal hits that shot 6 out of 10 times, okay? And it just, hit the front of the rim. Sometimes that hits the front of the rim, just hits the backboard and just kind of drops in sometimes. And, that one didn't. I would pause on the panic button, everybody, and pause on ripping Malone and the players. And I bet you anything, when Malone goes back and watches the video, he's going to say, okay, and maybe it wasn't as bad as I made it out to be, but there are things they have to defensively clean up, obviously.
It's funny. I'm sitting there with my bag waiting to go down to the media room from upstairs the last 4 minutes. And I normally go down as soon as I think the game is over. And I did the same thing you did. They can't miss on this possession. Okay, I'll wait another possession. They can't miss on this possession. Wait another possession. I ended up waiting till the final whistle, which I never do, to come downstairs and get behind the scenes. So on your question, Rachel, is it coaching or the players? DMAC talked about the start of the fourth quarter. I'm not going to focus on the offense. The defense there will tell you everything you need to know. There were 2 plays in a row where a off-ball screen on the near side, the left wing, was run by the Miami Heat. The first play was supposed to be a switch from the Nuggets. Christian Braun chased the guy to the hoop, and it left it to be a wide open 3 that the Heat hit. Same play, right again. This time, instead, Christian Braun tried to
he went with them. He went with him. Trailed them.
He chased, and they didn't switch out of it, but it was correctly not switched. The problem is that specific type of action should be switched 100% of the time by both players. So when we talk about a lack of discipline or effort, that's where that comes in. And that was 5 points, which, and by the way, that was where the and one was, and then it resulted in being an 8.2 possessions right there for the Heat. That is what changes the game. And when you had an 8-point lead going into a quarter and you have 8 points scored in 2 possessions, that screws you. So when you go, okay, so who do you blame for that? Obviously the players. It's obviously the couple players, because you have certain rules that you cannot break or do when you are a defense. And the Nuggets seemingly broke 3 or 4 absolute hard cardinals. KCP, again, 2 different times fouled jump shooters. One of them was on absolute bailout with a half a second left on the shot clock, a 3-point shot, and his hand is somewhere where it shouldn't have been. The second time, KCP gets into the shooting path when he had no need to get into again, another heave. So there were a couple cardinal rules that Nuggets players broke last night. But if you want to talk about being underprepared to start the game going down 10-2, that felt a little Maloney.
Okay, going back, we'll get to the second part. Is it playing lazy basketball, or is it just not smart basketball, just not being up to date with the plays?
Yeah, that's discipline. That's when I rewatched the game today. It was like, oh wait, I don't really think this is effort. I think it's more discipline than anything else. I mean, it's not like they weren't trying. They were just trying the wrong things. I mean, if you can try really hard, and if you make a mental mistake or you don't put yourself where you need to be, I mean, here's the irony. Don't try so hard. That's really it. You know, on that particular play, seriously, it's way more effort for Christian Braun to come around a screen and trail a guy. It's way easier. You don't have to try that hard. Oh, they're setting a screen. I ran to the screen. I'm going to now stop. I am stopping with the screen. We just made a switch. He's curling around. Oh, the guy, it was Bruce Brown, I believe, behind him. This is an easy play to defend. All he has to do is take one step into the lane and the play is covered on a switch. That's it. The only thing that exposes to you if you come off the screen and he pops out for a 3, I guess. But it was a curl. I mean, it was a curl. It wasn't a threat of a 3. You could hit a 3 off that. You could screen, right? Fake like you're going to curl and step out. Okay, fine. But now you're taking a much harder shot, And when 2 guys trail with the curl and left Gabe Vincent, by the way, Gabe Vincent, man, that dude is a dude. He is an undersized dude who is a dude. I love this guy. His attitude, his ability. What'd he shoot? 8 of 12, 4 of 6. Golly, was Gabe Vincent was their best player last night.
Yes.
Damn, Gabe Vincent. All right.
Yeah, and to D-Mac's point, if you guard it that way, you're getting a side contest on a hard shot from both sides of the court, both the guy where the screen action is and where the ball was coming from. So you switch that play 100% of the time.
But then, really, really quick then, KCP, you cannot foul dudes taking 3-pointers. And Jokic let's keep it fair. Jokic got the benefit of a call on a 3-pointer that was shaky if he should have gotten called on that foul too. So it's not like it didn't go both ways. This game was close, okay? This game, as frustrated as we are today, I watched that JJ Redick podcast after the game too, Jake. He said, wow, that was a really great game. And when you go back and watch it a little bit objectively, of course you want your team to win, and you never want your team to make any mistakes. But if you just were to watch that game, that was a pretty damn exciting game with a lot on the line. There were back and forth swings and right up to the last second at the end of the game. Damn exciting game. So I wouldn't be that depressed today. I'm sure it's okay to be a little disappointed, but this isn't anybody who's saying, oh, well, see, I told you so about the Heat. I mean, what's in your cornflakes this morning? The Heat were who they were. The Nuggets still have not played to their potential. The Heat have, okay? We've seen it. They have played to their potential more or less twice, kind of, but they missed a lot of shots in the first game. But that's it right there. 111 points for the Heat. Hey, man, you seriously aren't going to do better than that. That's the Miami Heat. Can the Nuggets be better than that? I say sure. Why not? And if the Heat let down a little bit, that's why they get blown out of games in the playoffs, and they have.
My question to you is cornflakes or frosted flakes now?
Cornflakes. Let's try to stay a little healthy. You know,
Okay.
we get away from the sugar. Maybe some oatmeal, really, in all honesty.
Fair. I'm a big frosted flakes girl. I love frosted flakes.
I was eating some
So
mung
underrated.
bean. I was eating some mung bean eggs. Just here, I'll show you what I got. I got a.
It looked delicious. DMAC before the show started. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I need to hit
Yeah,
DMAC.
I'm doing my plant-based eggs. There they are, chock full of mung beans.
Nice. Okay, well, let's go back to Jake's second part now, where he said the beginning of the game, it felt more like coaching and Malone. I actually disagree with you, Jake, but I'm curious to hear your perspective on this first.
It just didn't seem like they were ready for the Kevin Love adjustment. It seemed like they were trying to do what they did in game one and trying to take advantage of their size mismatch, which did not exist because Kevin Love was on Aaron Gordon and Jimmy Butler then shifted down to Jamal Murray. Their size mismatch was Michael Porter Jr., and he did not get into the lane at all. Yeah, maybe it was an MPJ thing because he was bad all night, but it just didn't seem like the Nuggets came out with the correct mentality and correct point of view of how to attack it. They went down 11 points very quickly in that game, and I just don't think it was all effort. I think that the Nuggets just didn't have the correct execution. As soon as Kevin Love and Bam Adebayo came out of that game and Zeller came in, that's when the Nuggets turned it on. Jokic had a great end of the first quarter. Then Christian Brown flips the game in the second quarter, and they're out and running. But it was completely it was an uncovered adjustment from the Nuggets to start the game, and it took them some time to work themselves into that game.
Okay. That's actually a very, very fair point. You know what really pissed me off, though? And this is like the smallest thing. Spo saying, oh, Kevin Love's not going to be in the starting lineup. And then, of course, he's in the starting lineup. I'm like, dude, if it's already been reported, can we please just like not play the BS game of like, oh, what's going to happen once the game actually starts? I think it's so pointless. Little side personal rant there. I just hate it.
Do you like Spoelstra, Rachel?
Yeah. I mean, I have no problems with him. I think he's a really good coach. I think him and Malone are very, very similar. There's nothing personal against him. I hate that BS. Like, if it's already been reported, then it's no longer going to be like this surprise factor. But maybe according to Jake's point, it was a surprise factor because the Nuggets didn't look prepared.
I like Spoelstra. I think he's a really good coach. And he does take a different tact than Malone. I was talking to a couple of Miami reporters. He never, ever, ever, ever throws his players under the bus publicly. I mean, ever. It's just not his thing. He doesn't do it. Malone does it all the time. But I think it's a genuine thing for Malone. I think Malone is who he is. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He's emotional. That's just who he is as a person. And I'm sure that's who Spoelstra is as well. It's actually two kind of crazy different approaches. And maybe Spoelstra's approach specifically works with a bunch of underdogs, right? I mean, hopefully we'll see how it goes. But this is the Nuggets are the Avengers. I still think the Heat are Rudy. But Rudy just made a really good play. I mean, Rudy, caught a first down. Congratulations. He went from defense to offense. He was kind of confused where to go anyways. He would just get on the field one way or the other. So I think, Malone said something interesting. He said to his guys, if we would have won that game, we would have got lucky. Meaning, like, he didn't think they deserved to actually win that game. I think he was happy, believe it or not. They had a bad fourth quarter. And somewhere down deep in his inner cockles of his soul, I think Malone is secretly happy that they lost this game. I think there's an I told you so.
I don't think he's happy. I think he's I was going to say relieved that but I don't think he's happy or relieved.
It's the biggest I told you so moment he's had all year. And he was willing to bang the I told you so drum pretty darn loudly last night.
So then the question is, did the Heat figure out the blueprint or did the Nuggets just give away a game, Jake?
The Nuggets gave away a game. They did not figure out how to reasonably stop Jokic. They slowed him a little bit, but it was really them slowing down and mucking up the game and making it a slop fest. The the Nuggets need to find a way to get more possessions out of the game. They need to go a little bit quicker, get into their offense a little bit quicker. They need to use their size advantage where it matters. If it's Porter or Gordon, out those advantages. They need to get Jimmy Butler off of Jamal Murray on the defensive end, and they need to guard the three-point shot a little bit better for Miami. It's not that complicated what the Nuggets need to do. There's a couple different things, but there's no huge adjustment or the Heat found something or the Heat did this. Jimmy Butler said it best. The Heat made some shots. The Nuggets really didn't. Like, it really came down to that. And at the end of the day, a lot of basketball games come down to that at this level. And you have to trust the fact that the Nuggets and their skill are going to make more shots over a 7-game series than 9 undrafted players and Jimmy Butler, essentially. So at the end of the day, I, again, feel more confident in the Nuggets after game 2. If that's the way the Heat are going to win a game and that's what it takes the Heat to win a game, there's just 2 wildcard factors. One, Jimmy Butler has not played a good game yet offensively. He was actually great defensively last night. 2, Tyler Hero's coming back in this series. And when you're settling for all jump shots and your best jump shooter is coming into the series, that's a little bit scary of a proposition. So those are the 2 X factors. Those are the 2 wild cards that could throw this thing on its head. But for now, I'm pretty confident the Nuggets are still going to win this series because the Heat simply cannot shoot 50% from 3 for 7 games. If they do, they're going to win. I mean, it's that easy.
Hero hasn't played in 7 weeks, and he had a funky look last night, man. He looked cool. He's a cool looking dude, no doubt about it. I can only dream of looking that cool. I'm calling it cool. You guys can call it whatever you want. I'm just calling it cool. Michael Porter Jr. hits 2 more 3-pointers, and Nikola Jokic has 8 assists. They win by 10. That's it. Pretty simple. I mean, Jokic with 4 assists. The Nuggets only had 23 assists on the night. Malone wants them around 30. Okay. Listen, if they get 30 assists, I'm not even saying Jokic needs a triple-double. All he needed was 3 more assists, and Michael Porter Jr. needed to make, in total, 3 3-pointers, 2 more than last night. It's as simple as that, guys. They do that, they win by 10.
There were quite a few Jokic passes off the mark, by the way. It wasn't just like...
He had 5 turnovers. 5 turnovers.
5 turnovers, and some of them weren't bad passes per se, but they weren't into the pockets. The Heat did a good job of getting into the lane, which is why the Nuggets lost that Sun series 2 years ago. It was because of guys in passing lanes. So that's something to be a little bit worryful about. Jokic normally gets about 20 to 21 potential assists per game. So, guy misses an open shot. It doesn't count as an assist, but it counts as potential assist. Last night, Jokic only had 11 potential assists. Jokic normally has 11 assists in a game. So it wasn't just that guys missed Jokic passes. It was Jokic just facilitating wasn't as good as normal last night. But hey, I'm not going to be criticizing the only guy that showed up for the Denver Nuggets completely for the entire game in game 2 at 41 points. He was fantastic. It was not Jokic's fault.
Nuggets need to stay focused. Don't get distracted by South Beach. Okay? I would hope that doesn't happen.
They're fun in South Beach.
They stayed focused in LA. So, all right, it's probably pretty easy to stay focused in Minnesota. The thing that I'm trying to figure out if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but these 2-day breaks suck. They just suck. Mm-hmm. They suck, period. They suck for all of us. They're unnecessary. It's totally contrived thing for TV. I really wish they were getting back at it, starting on Tuesday, not Wednesday. And I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but that 2-day break here in Denver between game 1 and 2 is like the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. You're here. Why are you? And they're not taking a 2-day break in Miami. It's game, rest, game, as it should be. So it sounds like I'm making some excuses here for the Nuggets, but look at what Bruce Brown said. They probably would have been way better off getting back to work on Saturday rather than Sunday. It is what it is. It's the same for both teams. And for the Heat, who had been on the road for like a week straight, again, I'll give them credit for being focused. But guys, they were down by 15. Okay? They were down by 8. The Heat were going into the 4th. All right? So do we really believe the Nuggets will suck again starting a 4th quarter? Do we? And if the answer is yes, and the Heat are just a team, if this is the Heat or the Baltimore stupid Ravens with Ray Lewis and a team of destiny, then okay, what are you going to do? I just don't think those things work out over a 7-game series.
Well, Let's just look at game 3. DMAC, I'm assuming, is just going to be automatically taking the Nuggets in game 3.
Take the Nuggets, but I think it's going to be pretty close. It's going to be contested. And I got to give the Heat their flowers. They're a damn tough fourth quarter team. They've come from behind multiple times. They're a salty 8 seed. All right. So, I give them their props. I think the line is only 2.5 right now for the Nuggets. Mm-hmm. So the wise guys think that this is going to be a lot closer. I'll take the Nuggets, but I'm not going to say it's going to be a blowout. I'll take the Nuggets by. All right. What if Michael Porter Jr. hit 2 more threes? Okay, that's 3, and Jokic had 3 more assists. So what am I got? I got 3, 2 more assists. I'll take Nuggets by 8, but like a tough 8, like not like an easy 8. Like it's the Nuggets are up by 4, and the Heat miss a shot, and it kind of drips on like that.
Okay, Jake.
The Heat have won 7 times this year in the playoffs when trailing by 10 or more points, to DMAC's point, which is tied for the record of most 10-point comebacks in a single postseason. So, yeah, they're just unkillable. It's extremely frustrating because I even thought the game was over at one point in the second quarter, and they're just unkillable. The Miami Heat, Denver Nuggets game 3, NBA Finals, where I'm at with this is I think the Heat's home court advantage is not as great as the Nuggets home court advantage. And it's not just an altitude thing. The Heat lost more games at home last series than the Nuggets have all playoffs. 1, the Heat lost 2 games. Their last 2 home games they lost, games 4 and game 6 against Boston. So, and you saw how they lost game 6 against Boston. They actually should have lost by a lot more. They stormed back into the game, and then Colorado kid Derek White has an all-time shot that's just going to get forgotten to history. So I'm not necessarily concerned going into Miami that home court's going to flip things considerably. I think the Nuggets are going to win this game by 5 to 6 to 7 points, somewhere in that range. We're talking about 2-possession game or so. I don't think it's going to be all that comfortable, but I think that the Nuggets will have learned their lessons, and it's going to be a lot less sloppy than it was tonight or last night. And that's what they need. They can't be that sloppy and win road playoff games, but Game 2 had shades of Game 4 up in Minnesota with the comeback, Game 2 against the Lakers with just not playing well at home, and then Game 3 in Phoenix where the Suns just played so well and yet they only won by a handful of points. This isn't the first time the Nuggets have been tied in a series this playoffs. It was 2-2 with Phoenix, and then Denver came up to the task and blew them out of the water. I would not be surprised if the Nuggets get this thing back to 3-1 and they come back home with a chance to win a championship in Game 5. I wouldn't be surprised if that's going to happen. So that's how this team's been all year, said for a couple dry spells when it didn't really matter. They've learned their lessons. They've come back in the next game and been unbelievable. I'd expect a massive Jamal Murray game in Game 3. I think that this guy is due for it after what happened in Game 2.
Rachel, what do you think?
Oh, I was going to say he should be once you see this piece of jewelry he gets. I'll say my prediction for tomorrow because we are running out of time here on the show, but he should be after this lovely blue arrow. Oh my goodness. Are you guys kidding me? Aaron Gordon gave this to Jamal Murray. I think that this is awesome. Look at that thing, you guys. I don't even want to know how many diamonds is on that. But again, my question is now for everybody. It's very flashy. It's very flashy for sure. That's beautiful. And then did we all see Jimmy Butler walking out of the arena? I may look like an idiot here when I ask this question. Is this video editing or did he somehow have this crazy shirt that changes? Okay, I'm going to play this for everybody. Hold on. I'm going to play one more time. I'm going to play because I'm confused. I'm confused as well. I'm going to play one more time, everybody. Just watch. Does it change? Like, does his shirt change or was that video editing, Jake?
I have an answer for you because I was in the hallway when that video was taken. That was video editing. That was Jimmy Butler walking in on media day with 4 more. He did not wear that shirt last night. He was wearing something different. That was video editing.
Wow. I'm shook. That looked so good. I sat there for like 10 minutes and I was like, It is perfect video editing. Usually I can find like the smallest little bit and I'm like, okay, like this is clearly edited. I couldn't tell at all. Great job to Bleacher Report on that one. So who's more flashy? Was that the Bleacher Report crew or is it Jamal Murray?
Dude, it's the apparent bromance between AG and Jamal Murray. I mean, what's the occasion? I mean, I know it's not his birthday because that's when Ja Morant got arrested or in trouble. He didn't get arrested. So, I'll go with AG's gift to Jamal.
Okay. Jake?
I'd be rocking that chain everywhere if I was Jamal. That's sick. That's a great thing. And sneakily, Jamal's been throwing some blue arrows when he's been coming out of the huddle for lineup introductions in the NBA Finals. That's been cool to see because it's been a while since we've seen the blue arrow shot.
You love to see it. Hopefully we see it for a couple more games. We for sure know we have a game 5 here in Denver. Of course, we'll be back tomorrow with all the latest and greatest and everything that you need to know going on in Denver sports. Jake, huge shout out to you, DMAC as well, and everybody in the comments. We'll see you guys tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Bye, everybody.